Welcome to Relative Our Family Mess. This is a dedicated space where we explore the deeper dimensions of life, focusing on true strength, timeless resilience, and the compelling stories that shape a man's journey. If you appreciate substantive, impactful content and refined perspectives, you are in the right place. Without further ado, I welcome you to today's new video.
The candles on my birthday cake were the kind you buy in bulk at a craft store. Tall, thin, dyed the color of cheap champagne. My daughter-in-law Sloane had arranged them in a perfect spiral on top of a 4-tier fondant tower that probably cost more than my first car. The cake was for the camera, not for me. I sat at the head of the long oak table in my son's dining room in Shadyside, wearing the same flannel shirt I had worn to my wife's funeral 3 years earlier. My Marine Corps pin was clipped to the collar, right where Elaine had pinned it the morning of our wedding in 1972. I had thought, foolishly, that wearing it tonight might mean something to my son. It did not. Darian had taken one look at me when I walked in and said, "Dad, did you forget this was black tie?" Then he had laughed like it was a joke we shared. There were 16 guests at the table. None of them were mine. Not one. Not Ali Hood, who had served beside me in country and stood up at my wedding. Not Father Mulligan from St. Paul, who had buried my Elaine. Not a single man from the shop. Sloane had told me she wanted to keep the guest list curated. That was the word she used. Curated. Like I was a piece of art that did not match her wallpaper. I touched the inside pocket of my flannel and felt the small, hard shape of Elaine's wedding ring. I had carried it there every day for the 3 years and 4 months since she passed. I keep her with me, always. That night, I would need her more than I had needed her in a long time. Sloane was filming again. She had her phone propped against the centerpiece on a little brass stand, the red light blinking. She was live streaming. The caption running across the bottom of the screen read, "Family Birthday Special, supporting my sweet father-in-law." 312 people were watching, including someone with the username Z.B, who kept sending fire emojis. I did not know what fire emojis meant. I did not need to. A young woman in a black server's vest moved past my chair carrying a tray of empty wine glasses. She was maybe 24, with quick, dark eyes and a name tag that said, Aeneas. She caught my gaze for half a second longer than a stranger should, and then she was gone, swallowed back into the kitchen. I did not think about it then. I would think about it later. Often. Darian stood up at the other end of the table. My only son, 34 years old, in a navy suit that fit him too tight in the shoulders, his hair combed back the way Sloane liked it. He raised a glass of champagne and gave me the smile he had been giving me since he was 11 years old. The smile he used when he had broken something and wanted me to fix it before his mother got home. "To my father," he said, his voice smooth as motor oil on a clean rag. 71 years young. A man who taught me everything I know about hard work. A few of Sloane's friends made soft, cooing sounds. One of them dabbed at her eye with a napkin she had not used. We are so blessed to have him in our home tonight. Truly blessed. I lifted my own glass. It was filled with sparkling water because Sloane had told the catering staff that Benson does not handle alcohol well anymore. That was new information to me. I had been drinking Iron City beer since before my son was old enough to spell his own name. "To family," I said. The words tasted like ash. The phone in my breast pocket buzzed. I knew the ringtone. It was the one I had assigned to Ali Hood 20 years ago. An old bugle call I had recorded off a record one Sunday afternoon. Ali never called during a meal. Ali never called for nothing. The last time he had called me in the middle of dinner was the night the warehouse next to the shop caught fire in 2015. I set down my glass. The room kept laughing about something Sloane's friend had said. I pulled the phone out and turned my back to the table. Ali. Benz. His voice was tight. I could hear wind behind him and the deep mechanical growl of an engine that did not belong on our street. Where are you right now? My son's house. Birthday. Get in your truck. Right now. They're tearing down the shop sign. I did not understand the words. I heard them, and I understood the individual sounds, but they did not assemble into meaning. Say that again. There's a crew here, maybe 6 men, a flatbed. They've already got the sign down. Benz. They're loading the lathe. The big one. The one Elaine helped you move in '78. They told me to step back. They've got a court order. The room behind me kept laughing. Sloane was saying something into her phone about the importance of family. The candles on the cake burned steady and tall. A court order from who? Ali. From your son, Benz. From Darian. The paper has his name on it. I turned around slowly. Darian was watching me over the rim of his champagne glass. He had stopped smiling. Sloane had stopped filming. The whole table had gone quiet in that way a room goes quiet when everyone realizes at the same moment that something is about to break. I lowered the phone. Darian. My voice came out the way it used to come out on the floor of the shop when a young apprentice was about to lose a finger to a machine he did not respect. Did you sell my shop? He set his glass down. He took a long, slow breath. And then, God help him, he smiled. It's already done, Dad. The judge signed last week. You just didn't know. I do not remember standing up. I remember the sound of my chair scraping the hard wood, and I remember Sloane's voice rising into the upper registers of fake concern, asking everyone to please give Benson some air. I remember Darian reaching out toward my arm, and I remember pulling away from him so hard, a wine glass tipped over and bled red across the white tablecloth. The stain was the shape of Pennsylvania. I walked through the foyer. I picked up my keys off the marble bowl by the door. I closed the front door behind me with the kind of quiet a man learns in the jungle when slamming something can get you killed. Then I ran. My Dodge Ram was parked 3 doors down because Sloane had asked me not to leave it in front of the house. The neighbors, she said. The truck was a 1992 model with 240,000 miles on it. The driver door creaked the way an old man creaks getting out of bed in the morning. I had rebuilt the engine twice with my own hands. It started on the first turn of the key, the way it always started. And I pulled away from that street so fast, the tires barked against the cold asphalt. The rain was a thin Pittsburgh rain, the kind that does not commit to falling, just hangs in the air and waits. I drove down Murray and onto Forbes, then west toward the river. The Strip District was 19 minutes away on a normal night. I made it in 12. I do not know what speed I was driving. The dashboard speedometer in that truck has not worked since 2007. While I drove, my mind did the thing it has always done when something is breaking. It went somewhere else. It went back. It went to a summer Saturday in 1978. The morning we hung the sign for the first time. Elaine was wearing a yellow sundress and standing on the second rung of the aluminum ladder with a level pressed against the wood. I was below her, holding the ladder steady, looking up at her, thinking she was the most beautiful thing I had ever helped balance. She had hand-painted the letters herself the week before. Mathews Machine Works, established 1978. Black paint on white pine, 26 inches across. She had painted my name a little larger than the rest of it. Because it's your name, Benz, she said. And one day, it will be our boys. It was never our boys. He had asked me one Christmas, when he was 19 and home from his second year of law school, when I was finally going to sell that grease pit and retire like a normal person. I had laughed. because I thought he was joking. He was not joking. He had never been joking. Liberty Avenue came up faster than I expected. I turned hard onto Smallman, and the strip opened in front of me. The old brick warehouses standing shoulder to shoulder under the yellow sodium lights. The rain making the cobblestones shine like wet coal. My shop was at the corner of 21st and Smallman, a single-story brick building with a roll-up bay door and a small office on the side. I had spent 47 years inside that building. There was nothing about it I did not know. I knew which floor joists creaked. I knew which window faced the morning sun in March. I knew the exact spot near the rear sink where Elaine had once dropped a coffee mug in the autumn of 1996, and a faint ring still lived in the concrete. I saw the flatbed before I saw anything else. It was parked across the entire driveway, a long red Peterbilt with the engine running and the hazard lights blinking slow. On the bed of it, strapped down with yellow ratchet straps, was my lathe, the big one. The South Bend 9-foot that Elaine and I had bought used from a closing tool and die shop in McKeesport for $1,100 and 45 years of marriage worth of patience. And beside the lathe, leaning against it, face up like a corpse, was the sign. Mathews Machine Works. I parked the Ram crooked across the curb and got out. Allie Hood was standing in the middle of the driveway with his arms crossed over his chest. He is 73 years old, 6'1", and built the way an old Marine stays built if he never lets himself sit down. 4 men in reflective vests were standing in a loose half-circle around him, none of them stepping forward. Ali has that effect. He turned when he heard the truck door slam. His face did not change. It almost never does. But I saw his shoulders drop a 1/4 inch when he saw me. And that 1/4 inch told me more than most men could tell me in an hour. Bence. Ali. The crew foreman, a heavy-set man with a clipboard pressed against his chest like a shield, stepped forward. Sir, are you Benson Mathews? I am. We have a court-authorized work order. The property has been signed over by the legal guardian of record. We were told the original owner has been declared mentally incapacitated and is not to be engaged with on site. I'm going to ask you to please step back behind the line of the sidewalk. Mentally incapacitated. 2 words. 6 syllables. In one sentence, a man I had never met had used the legal language of the state of Pennsylvania to take my mind, my shop, and my name, and hand them to my son. Behind the foreman, a city patrol car had pulled up at the corner, its lights already turning slow. 2 officers got out. One of them was young and white, and his hand was already resting on his belt. The other was older and looked tired, and looked like he wished he were anywhere else. I did not move. Ali stepped closer to me. He kept his eyes on the foreman, but he spoke low, the way a man speaks at a funeral when he does not want the family to hear. Bence, this stinks. Something ain't right here. I got eyes inside the courthouse. We will fix this. Not tonight, but we will. I looked past him, at the sign lying on the flatbed, at the rain falling slow on Elaine's painted letters, and I made myself stand still. The door beeped 3 times before it locked. I had heard locks my whole life. The tumbler of a master padlock on a tool chest, the bolt of an M16 sliding home in a rice paddy outside Da Nang, the brass latch on the front door of the house Elaine and I bought in 1976. Locks have a language, and a man who works with steel learns to listen. This one spoke in a flat, electronic tone. 3 short notes, and then a soft click that meant the hallway on the other side belonged to someone else now. Room 14 at Maplewood Memory Care smelled like bleach poured over old carpet. The walls were the color of weak coffee. A single window, sealed shut, looked out on a parking lot where a sodium lamp buzzed against the dark. My duffel bag sat on a plastic chair. Inside it were 2 flannel shirts, A pair of work boots, my shaving kit, and nothing else that mattered. Everything that mattered had been taken at the front desk. The nurse called herself Brenda. She was maybe 40, hair pulled back so tight it pinched the corners of her eyes. She wore lavender scrubs and a smile that did not move when she spoke. She held a clear plastic bag like a fisherman holding a catch.
Mr. Mathews, intake policy, personal electronics, wallets, jewelry, all secured during the evaluation period. You will get a receipt.
How long is the evaluation?
That is up to the physician.
I handed her my phone. I handed her my wallet, which held $42 and a photograph of Elaine at Niagara Falls in 1983. Then I held out my left hand and turned it over slowly, because at 71 your knuckles do not unbend the way they used to. On my pinky finger sat Elaine's wedding ring. I wore it there because my own finger had grown too thick over the years. The gold was thin in places, worn by 44 years of her hand inside mine.
That too, sir. This was my wife's.
Policy is policy, Mr. Mathews. I looked at her. I have looked at men across a negotiating table who wanted to cheat me out of a 6-figure tooling contract. I have looked at a sergeant who told me my best friend would not be coming back from a sweep near Hue. I know how to look at a person. Brenda did not blink. I worked the ring off. It came slow, the way a bolt comes out of a thread it has lived in for decades. She dropped it in the plastic bag with a small, dull sound, and I felt something inside my chest do the same.
Lights out at 9, she said. Breakfast at 7. Door stays locked from the outside until morning rounds. For your safety.
The door beeped 3 times again. I sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress was the kind they buy by the truckload, thin foam on a metal frame. Somewhere down the hall a man was crying without words, a steady low sound like a kettle that had not yet learned to whistle. Somebody answered him with a sharper cry, and then a third voice, and then quiet. I thought about the cost. $8,500 a month, the brochure on the desk said. Private pay only for room 14. I filed that figure away the way I used to file tolerances on a blueprint. A man does not stop being an engineer just because someone takes his wrench. I lay back without undressing. The ceiling tiles had water stains shaped like states I had driven through. Tennessee, Missouri, the long ragged outline of Texas. Then, the way memory ambushes a tired man. I was back in the VA hospital in Oakland on a March night in 2022. Elaine's hand in mine, lighter than it had any right to be. The monitor's slow green pulse. Her voice was almost gone by then, but she pulled me close and said, "Don't let them put me on a shelf, Benny. Take me home. Promise me." I promised. I keep my promises. I must have slept, because the next thing I knew the window was gray and a different sound was at the door. Not the beep. A soft scrape, like a card sliding under wood. I swung my legs down. My socks made no noise on the linoleum. A folded square of paper lay just inside the threshold. I picked it up. Inside, written in pencil in a careful, slanted hand, was a 10-digit phone number with a Pittsburgh area code. Below it, 2 letters. A. H. I stood very still. A. H could be 100 names. It could be a trap. It could be a stranger with the wrong room. But a man who has been stripped of his ring and his wallet and his shop in the space of one bad evening learns to read the small chances life still hands him. Footsteps came down the hall. Rubber soles. Brenda's gait, brisk and certain. I bent down, lifted the insole of my left work boot, slid the paper under it, and pressed the insole back into place. The lock beeped 3 times. I counted the quarters in my palm 3 times before I picked up the receiver. 7 of them. $1.75. At 25 cents a minute on the payphone bolted to the wall beside the vending machine, that gave me 7 minutes of conversation, and not 1 second more.
A man learns to budget when the world has decided he is no longer trusted with a wallet.
The payphone sat at the end of the common hallway under a fluorescent light that hummed off-key. Residents shuffled past in slippers. A television in the day room played a game show with the volume too loud. I had waited 2 days for the right moment. 2 days of pretending to eat their gelatin and nodding when an aide asked if I knew what year it was. 1969, I told her once, to see what she would write down. She wrote it down. I fed the first quarter. The slot swallowed it with a clean metallic click that I respected. The number from the folded paper was written on the inside of my left wrist now, in pen, beneath the cuff of my flannel. I dialed slow, 10 digits, Pittsburgh area code. It rang twice.
Hello? A woman's voice. Young. Careful.
My name is Benson Mathews. Somebody slid your number under my door.
A pause. Long enough that I heard her breathing. Mr. Mathews.
I've been hoping you would call. My name is Aeneas Hopkins. Ali Hood is my grandfather.
Something in my chest unclenched a quarter turn. Ali had a granddaughter. I had met her once at a Veterans Day cookout maybe 4 years back, a quiet girl in a navy blazer who had just passed the bar exam for clerks. She had shaken my hand and called me sir.
Aeneas, where are you? I cannot say on this line. Just listen. I work in the records office at the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas, Civil Division. I see every order that crosses Judge Moody's desk before it gets filed.
Go on. Mr. Mathews, your guardianship hearing already happened.
It was on the afternoon of August the 11th, 3 days before your birthday. The receiver got heavier in my hand.
That is not possible. Nobody told me.
They did not have to. Your son filed under an emergency ex parte petition. That means the court can grant a temporary guardianship without notifying the alleged incapacitated person if the petitioner provides a sworn physician's affidavit claiming imminent danger.
Who signed the affidavit?
A doctor named Marcus Halsey. He has signed 11 of them in the last 14 months, all for the same law firm, all approved by the same judge.
I closed my eyes.
I could see the courtroom in my head, the way I used to see a blueprint before I cut the first piece of stock. Empty chairs, my son in a suit, a judge with a pen.
How long did the hearing last?
4 minutes, Mr. Mathews. From the moment Judge Moody called the case to the moment he signed the order, 4 minutes. No witnesses called, no guardian ad litem appointed, no examination of the petitioner.
4 minutes.
I had spent longer than that tightening a single bolt on a transmission housing.
You said you have something.
Her voice dropped lower. I had to press the receiver harder against my ear. I record everything that happens in that courtroom. It is not strictly against the rules for a clerk, but it is not encouraged either. I have a digital file, 37 minutes long. It covers the hearing before yours and the hearing after, and yours in the middle. Judge Moody's voice, your son's voice, the doctor on speakerphone.
Why are you doing this?
She was quiet for a beat. The fluorescent light hummed. Because my grandfather served with you. Because he came home from Khe Sanh. Because you carried him 800 meters under fire. And you never once told that story at a single cookout. He told me. And because what is happening to you is happening to other people, sir. Yours is not the first file I have flagged. It is the 4th this year.
The 4th.
I let that number settle into the steel of me. I fed another quarter into the slot.
Where do we meet?
Sunday morning. Maplewood runs a van to St. Andrew's Lutheran on Forbes Avenue for the 10 o'clock service. Sign up for it. Sit in the 3rd pew from the back, left side. I will be in the pew behind you. Do not turn around. I will slide a thumb drive into the hymnal pocket. You take it before communion.
Understood.
Mr. Mathews, one more thing. There is something else about your son. Something I have not put in writing yet. When we meet, I will.
The rubber soles came around the corner.
I knew that gait. Brisk, certain. I hung up the receiver mid-sentence and turned. Slow, the way an old man turns who has nothing to hide. Brenda stopped 6 feet away and tilted her head. Mr. Mathews, who are you calling? The VA pharmacy in Oakland, I said. About my blood pressure refill. The number is on the back of my insurance card, which you have in the safe.
Brenda's eyes stayed flat for 2 long seconds. Then she nodded once and made a small note on the clipboard she carried like a weapon.
Next time you need to make a call, Mr. Mathews, you ask the front desk. We dial it for you. It is for your protection. Of course. She walked away. I waited until her rubber soles turned to the corner before I let my shoulders drop a 1/4 inch. The next 4 days, I was a model resident. I ate the gelatin. I went to bingo. I let an aide cut my fingernails because residents in the dementia wing are not allowed scissors. When Brenda came on shift, I asked her about her grandchildren, and she told me about a boy named Caleb who played the trumpet badly, and I nodded the way you nod at a stranger on a long bus ride.
On Sunday morning, I signed up for the church van. St. Andrew's Lutheran sat on Forbes Avenue between a dry cleaner and a coffee shop that had once been a hardware store.
I remembered when it was the hardware store. Elaine used to buy her paint there. The pastor was a thin man with a Wisconsin accent who shook each resident's hand at the door and pretended not to notice the aide hovering behind us with a list. I sat in the 3rd pew from the back, left side. The wood was dark with 100 years of varnish. The hymnal in the pocket in front of me was leather-bound, well-worn. The gold lettering rubbed nearly flat. I did not turn around when the pew behind me creaked. The organ started. We stood for the opening hymn. I felt a brush of fabric, a small, careful pressure at the back of the pew. And then nothing. When we sat for the readings, I let my hand rest in the hymnal pocket. A thumb drive, no bigger than a kidney bean, sat against the leather. Beside it, a second folded square of paper. I closed my fingers around both and slid them into the inside pocket of my jacket. Communion came. I did not go up. An old man with creaky knees has license to stay seated, and an aide who is half asleep has license not to notice. I opened the paper in my lap, below the line of sight. After service. Back parking lot. Dark blue sedan. Someone needs to meet you. Trust her. A. I read it twice. Then I tore it into 8 pieces and slid the pieces into the back of the hymnal, between pages 400 and 401. The recessional hymn was, "A Mighty Fortress is Our God." I've always liked that one. My father sang it in a Lutheran church in Altoona when I was a boy, and the line about the ancient foe still doing us grievous harm has stayed with me longer than most things. I told the aide I needed the bathroom. She pointed down the hall and said, 3 minutes. I walked past the bathroom, out the side door, around the back of the building, past a row of arborvitae the church had planted to hide the dumpsters, a dark blue sedan, mid-size, government plates that did not quite look like government plates, idled at the far end of the lot. The driver's window came down 2 inches as I approached. "Mr. Mathews, get in the back, please." I got in. She was maybe 38, dark hair pulled back, charcoal suit, a small gold cross at her collarbone. She did not turn around. She watched the side door of the church in her mirror. "My name is Mariana Spears. I am a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Pittsburgh field office. I have been working a financial elder abuse task force for the last 2 years. Your son's name crossed my desk in February." "February," I said. "That is 6 months before he locked me up." "Yes, sir. He was not on our radar because of you. He was on our radar because of a civil judgment for $1.8 million and a pattern of bank deposits that did not match his reported income. You became relevant 3 weeks ago when your guardianship petition was filed. We've been waiting for the right moment to make contact.
She slid a small flip phone into the seat beside me. Cheap plastic. A piece of masking tape on the back with a single number written in marker. That is a burner. Encrypted. One number programmed. Mine. Charge it under your mattress and answer when it buzzes.
What do you want from me? I want you to keep pretending. Be docile. Be confused. Let your son think the door is closed. We are building a case that needs him to make one more move, and he will not make it if he thinks you are awake.
I thought about that. I thought about the 4 minutes in Judge Moody's courtroom.
I will do it. On one condition. There is a lawyer named Barbara Kane. She drew up my wife's will in 2009. I need you to find her and tell her I am alive and I am in Maplewood. She will know what to do.
Mariana wrote the name down without comment.
Then she finally looked at me in the rearview mirror, and her eyes were not cold. They were tired and steady, and they had seen things. Mr. Mathews, there is one more thing you need to know. About your son's wife. About Sloane. She is not only tied to Darian.
The side door of the church opened. The aide stepped out, scanning. A woman's laugh came out of a phone speaker in the day room, light and practiced. The kind of laugh that has been polished in front of a mirror until it stopped sounding like anything a real person would make.
I knew that laugh. It belonged to my son's wife.
I was standing in the doorway of the common room with a paper cup of decaf in my hand. The television was off, for once. A young aide named Tara sat in the corner chair with her feet tucked under her, scrolling on her phone. The volume low, but not low enough. Most of the residents were already in their rooms. The fluorescent lights had been dimmed to evening setting.
I walked closer, slow, holding the cup at chest height, the way an old man does when his hands are not as steady as they once were. Tara did not look up.
On the screen, Sloane sat in a white robe in front of a marble bathroom counter. The lighting was soft and gold. A small caption at the top of the live feed said, 412,000 watching now. Hearts and emojis floated up the side of the picture like sparks off a grinding wheel.
You guys, Sloane was saying, dabbing a single tear from the corner of her eye with a knuckle, careful not to smudge anything.
I just want to give you all a little update on Daddy Mathews, because I know so many of you have been asking, and your love and prayers really mean the world to us right now.
Daddy Mathews. I had never been called that in my life.
It has been...
She paused, drew a long, shaky breath she did not need.
Such a hard week. The hardest. Darian is trying to be so strong, but watching your own father not recognize you anymore, it breaks something in a man. You know.
The comments scrolled. Stay strong, Queen. Praying for your family. You are an angel for taking care of him.
He is in such a beautiful place,
she said.
The staff is incredible. He has his own room, a window, the works. We made sure of that. I told Darian, whatever it costs, his peace of mind is what matters.
$8,500 a month. I thought. Out of an account she has not earned $1 toward in 7 years of marriage. I did not move. I did not blink. I let the steel inside me cool another degree. Then her phone. The actual phone she was not filming with, the one resting on the marble counter beside a glass of something pink, lit up with a notification banner. The camera caught it for maybe a second before her hand jumped to slap it face down. The banner read, in clean white letters against a dark preview pane, ZB tonight, 9 p.m., same place. She laughed again, sharper this time, and tucked the phone under a hand towel. Sorry, you guys. My sister keeps texting. She is such a worrier. Anyway, if you feel moved to send anything, the link in my bio goes to a fund we set up for his memory care. Every little bit counts. Love you. Good night. The feed ended. Tara locked her screen and looked up and saw me, and gave me the soft, pitying smile young people give old people
when they think the old people are not really there.
Did you need something? Mr. Mathews. Just heading to bed, sweetheart. Thank you. I walked back to room 14 with the paper cup still untouched in my hand. I did not let my face change until the door beeped 3 times behind me. Then I sat on the edge of the bed, took a pencil stub I had stolen from a crossword book, and wrote 2 letters on the inside of my left wrist beneath the cuff of my flannel, just below the phone number that had nearly faded away. Z.B. The burner phone buzzed under my mattress at 9:47. Mr. Mathews. Agent. Barbara Kane is alive. She moved her practice to Mount Lebanon in 2015. I spoke with her this afternoon. She remembers your wife. She remembers you. She cried on the phone, sir. She wants to see you. We will arrange it for next Sunday after service. Same protocol. Good. I let a breath out. I saw something tonight. Sloan was on a live stream. Her phone lit up, a notification. Initials. Z.B. 9 p.m. Same place. The line went quiet for a long 4 seconds. Mr. Mathews, do not write that down on any piece of paper that anyone could find. Keep it in your head. If you have to write it on your skin, where it will wash off in 3 days. Already done. Good man. We are going to talk about Z.B when we meet next. Not on this phone. Understood. I slid the burner back under the mattress and laid down with my boots still on. Because some habits the Marine Corps puts in you do not come out for any amount of soft pillow. Sleep was coming when the lock beeped 3 times. Not morning rounds. Wrong hour, wrong rhythm. The door swung open. Brenda stood in the hall light, and behind her, half a step back, stood a man in a charcoal suit I did not recognize. Tall, mid-40s, a leather portfolio under one arm. Brenda's voice was lower than I had ever heard it. Mr. Mathews, your son sent someone to see you. The leather portfolio landed on the small formica table with a sound like a small caliber round. Mr. Mathews, my name is Curtis Lang. I am an estate planning consultant retained by your son to help simplify some paperwork. I apologize for the late hour. My schedule has been brutal this week. He smiled. The smile did not reach the bridge of his nose. He pulled a chair out and sat without being asked. He was thin in a way that suggested running on a treadmill while reading email. His shoes were soft and expensive and made no noise on the linoleum. Brenda stood in the doorway with her arms folded. She did not look at me. Just 2 quick signatures tonight, sir, Curtis said, unzipping the portfolio. A general durable power of attorney, broader than the limited one your son currently holds. And a quitclaim deed transferring the Squirrel Hill property into a family trust we have set up for tax efficiency. Standard stuff. He slid a heavy pen across the table. Mont Blanc. The pen alone cost more than my first truck. I let my hand drift toward it, then drift past it, and rest on the edge of the table. Where is Elaine? Curtis blinked. Sir, your wife passed in 2022. We have spoken about this. We have not spoken before in my life, son. A flicker behind his eyes. He recovered. Of course. I meant your son told me. Let us just focus on the signatures. I picked up the pen. I held it the way a man holds a tool he does not recognize. I let it slip and clatter onto the floor. Curtis bent to retrieve it. When he handed it back, I tried to sign, and my hand drifted 3 inches off the line, and the pen rolled again. My eyes, I said. I need the thicker glasses, the ones in the drawer at the house. Did anyone bring those? Curtis exhaled through his nose. He looked at Brenda. Brenda's face stayed neutral, but her eyes had moved. I have spent 50 years reading the faces of men deciding whether to trust me with a job. And I know when a face is doing math behind it. We will come back in the morning, Curtis said. He stood. I will have a notary with me. Try to get some rest, Mr. Mathews.
He left the papers on the table. He left the pen, too.
Brenda closed the door behind him. The lock beeped 3 times. Then, for 1/2 second, I heard her stand on the other side without walking away. Then her rubber soles moved off down the hall. I lay back on the thin foam mattress with my boots still on, and let memory take me where memory wanted to go. A hillside outside Khe Sanh in March of 1969. Red clay and the smell of cordite. Ali Hood was 20 years old and had a piece of shrapnel the size of a pocket knife in his right thigh. I was 19. The corpsman was dead. The radio was dead. The lieutenant was running back down the slope and shouting at us to move. I picked Ali up in a fireman's carry. He weighed 180 pounds, and I weighed 155, and the distance to the tree line was 800 meters of open ground under fire from a ridge we could not see. I do not remember the running. I remember the breathing. I remember thinking very clearly, I am not made to die at 19. I have not done the thing I am supposed to do yet.
I did not know then what the thing was.
I only knew it was waiting. 2 years later, on a Tuesday afternoon in Altoona, Pennsylvania. I walked into a diner on 11th Avenue, still in my discharge uniform because my civilian clothes were in a duffel I had not yet unpacked. A waitress with red hair and a small enamel peace sign pinned to her apron poured me a cup of coffee without asking. She looked at the uniform. She looked at my face. Then she did something nobody had done since I had gotten off the plane in Oakland.
She said,
"Welcome home." Her name was Elaine Blackburn. She married me 11 months later. The peace sign came off the apron, but it sat in a small dish on our kitchen windowsill for the next 44 years. And once, early on, she took my face in both hands and made me look at her, and she said, "Benny, you do not get to bring the war into the rooms where we live. Promise me, whatever it cost you over there, you set it down at our door." I promised. In March of 2022, in a private room at the VA hospital in Oakland, her hand weighed less than a sparrow in mine. The cancer had taken her down to wire and breath. She pulled me close one last time and she said, "Don't let them put me on a shelf, Benny. Take me home." I had promised that, too. The urn was a cherrywood box the size of a loaf of bread. I had given it to Darian to hold the week I went into Allegheny General for the cardiac workup, 3 weeks before my birthday. He had set it on the mantel in his shady-side living room and told me not to worry. I sat up in the dark of room 14. Something cold turned over in my chest. The burner phone buzzed under the mattress. The clock on the wall read 3:47. "Mr. Mathews, wake up. We have a problem with Curtis Lang." Curtis Lang is not just a paperwork man, Mr. Mathews. He is the one they send when the paperwork needs to become permanent. Mariana's voice was very awake for 3:47 in the morning. I sat up on the edge of the mattress and pressed the burner harder against my ear. "Permanent how?" "Last March, a widow named Marjorie Pence in Sewickley signed an enhanced power of attorney and a quitclaim deed in her assisted living room at 9 in the morning. Curtis Lang notarized it personally. She died of a coronary event 6 months later. Her 2 daughters in Cleveland inherited a tax bill and an empty house. The medical examiner did not look closely. Nobody asked him to. I let that sit between us in the dark. How many? That we can prove. 3. That we suspect. 11. All the same law firm, Hartwell and Beck. All approved by the same judge. You see the shape of it now. I see it. Do not sign anything in the morning. Keep playing confused. I'm sending Barbara Kane to the front desk at 8:55. She will sign in as a visiting niece. Her cover is that she is Margaret Kane, your late wife's cousin's daughter from Erie, Maggie. She will only have 15 minutes before Curtis and the notary arrive. Use them well. Understood. And Mr. Mathews, whatever Barbara tells you about your assets, however large the number is, do not react. Do not let your face change. Brenda has cameras in the common areas, and I am no longer convinced she is only working for Maplewood.
Already figured that.
Good man. The line went dead. I lay back down. I knew I would not sleep again. There is a kind of tired that goes past sleep into a sharper place, and a Marine learns to live there for stretches at a time. I let my eyes close anyway, because closed eyes can do work that open eyes cannot. Memory came up again, the way it had all week, on its own schedule. I was 37 years old. The year was 1987. The shop on Smallman Street had been open 11 years, and we were finally turning enough profit that Elaine could quit her second job at the dental office. I was working nights on a problem nobody had asked me to solve. A bearing housing for a steel mill rolling stand. The alloy they used cracked at 1400 degrees under load. I wanted one that held to 1700. I tried 43 formulations in a small electric crucible in the back corner of the shop. The 44th one held. I tested it in 3 different mill environments over 6 months. It held. I tested it at 1800. It held. Then I sat down at the kitchen table with Elaine and a yellow legal pad, and we did the math. The patent attorney in 1990 wanted $12,000 to file. We had $9,000 in savings and a mortgage. Elaine wrote the check anyway. In 1991, United Steel Pittsburgh came to the shop in a black sedan. 3 men in suits offered me $400,000 cash for the patent. A lot of money in 1991. Enough to pay the house off and put a roof on the shop and take Elaine to Niagara Falls. She heard them out from the doorway between the shop and the office, drying her hands on a rag. After they left, she sat down across from me and pushed the offer letter to the side and said, "Don't sell the future for today's grocery money, Benny. Ask for the stock." I asked for the stock. They balked. We held. They came back 2 weeks later with a counteroffer of 18% of the parent company in lieu of cash, with a quarterly royalty floor on every ton of Carbo Steel 9 they sold under the patent. I signed. By 2016, the patent was in transmission housings and turbine sleeves and Navy destroyer bearings. The 18% had grown teeth. The quarterly royalty checks paid for our property taxes, and a savings account in Elaine's name we never touched. Nobody knew. Not Darian, not the IRS beyond the line items they were entitled to. Just me, Elaine, an accountant named Wexler in McMurray, and an old wooden box of paperwork in a floor safe under the workbench in the shop. In March of 2022, in the VA hospital, Elaine pulled me close one more time. Her breath was thin, but her eyes were the same eyes that had told me to ask for the stock. "Benny, don't ever let them know what you have until you know who they are. People show you who they are when they think you have nothing. Promise me that one, too." I had promised. The window of room 14 turned gray, then yellow. Breakfast trays rattled in the hallway. Brenda's rubber soles made their morning rounds. I sat in the chair by the door with my hands folded and my face arranged into the soft, pleasant nothing of a man who could not remember what year it was. At 8:55, the lock beeped 3 times. A woman in her late 60s stepped into the room. Silver hair in a neat bob, a red coat, a small bouquet of yellow roses in one hand, and a leather satchel in the other.
Uncle Benson,
She said brightly, loud enough for Brenda to hear.
it's me. It's Maggie.
Then she closed the door behind her, set the roses on the table, and her voice dropped to almost nothing. "We have 15 minutes before Curtis arrives. Listen carefully." Barbara opened the satchel on the small formica table and laid 3 documents down in a neat line, the way a surgeon lays out instruments before the first cut. "Listen, Benny. I'm going to talk fast. You stop me only if something is unclear. She had not called me Benny in 17 years. The last time was at Elaine's 60th birthday party in our backyard. I sat down across from her. I folded my hands. I let the soft, pleasant nothing fall off my face for the first time in 8 days, and it felt like setting down a sandbag. Talk. She tapped the first document, a blue legal folder. Elaine's last will and testament, dated October 14th, 2009. Witnessed by Barbara herself and a paralegal named Donna, whose signature I remembered from old paperwork. This is unchanged. You are sole heir of everything Elaine held in her name. The savings account in Mount Lebanon Federal. The trust she set up in 2011. Her share of the patent royalty income. Darian gets nothing under this instrument and never did. He thinks he is in this will because Elaine let him think it. So did I. Good. She taps the second document. A printed statement, 3 pages. The Wexler and Associates letterhead at the top. Your accountant updated this Tuesday morning at my request. As of the close of business yesterday, your total net assets, between the 18% stake in United Steel Pittsburgh, the Carbo Steel 9 royalty stream, the trust Elaine left for you, the Mount Lebanon savings, and 2 pieces of unencumbered real estate, total $64,700,000. My face did not move. I had promised Mariana it would not, and I had promised Elaine it would not. And a man does not break 2 promises at once. But inside, in the part where the steel lives, something turned over slow. 64.7. I had known the number was large. I had not let myself look at it in 3 years. Elaine used to handle the statements, and once a year she would tell me a single sentence over coffee. We are doing fine, Benny. That was all I had asked her for. Darian does not know. Darian believes you are worth approximately $800,000. The Squirrel Hill house, the shop building, a modest savings account, and your Social Security. That is the number he is operating on. That is the number Curtis Lang is operating on. That is the number Judge Moody saw on the petition. Good. She tapped the third document, a thin manila folder. 3 days ago, on Mariana's signal, I filed articles of organization with the Pennsylvania Department of State for a limited liability company called Squirrel Hill Heritage, LLC. I am the registered agent. The sole member is the Blackburn Family Trust that Elaine established in 2011. The sole beneficiary of that trust is you. On paper, on any search any title company or attorney or journalist could run, Squirrel Hill Heritage is a small private investment vehicle with no traceable connection to Benson Mathews. It has $900,000 of working capital in a brokerage account in Pittsburgh. And what does Squirrel Hill Heritage do? Barbara's eyes held mine. It buys things, Benny. Quietly. At fair market value. From sellers who do not know who the buyer is. I let one breath out through my nose. My shop. My house. When the time comes, I closed my eyes for one heartbeat. Then I opened them. Elaine knew. Elaine wrote the operating agreement in 2011 and gave it to me sealed. She told me to file it the day I decided you needed it. I decided 4 days ago. She reached into the satchel and brought out 2 more things. The first was a single sheet of paper. A durable power of attorney signed by Elaine in 2018, naming Barbara as her agent and, by survivorship clause, granting Barbara emergency legal authority over Elaine's trust assets in the event of Elaine's death and Benson's incapacity. It had a notary seal from Mount Lebanon. This is the lever we used to break Darian's petition. It predates his by 7 years, and it is cleaner than anything Curtis Lang has ever notarized in his life. The second was a cream envelope. My name in Elaine's handwriting on the front. Open when Benny needs to remember why. I held it in both hands for 2 seconds. Then I broke the seal. Inside, on a single half sheet of stationery, one line in her round, careful script. Benny,
Make them small. Then make them sorry. Then come home and build something. I love you. E.
I read it twice. Then I folded it and slid it into the inside pocket of my flannel, next to the worn photograph from the wallet I no longer owned. Barbara looked at her watch. We have 9 minutes. When Curtis arrives, you tell him your personal attorney has been retained and must be present for any signature. Do not give a name. I will return at 1 this afternoon in a suit, formally, and serve notice. Brenda will not stop me. The director of this facility does not know what his floor manager is doing, and that is leverage we will use. She was halfway through closing the satchel when the door rattled. The lock beeped 3 times. It was 9:08 in the morning, 22 minutes early. The door opened. Curtis Lang stood in the hallway in a different suit than last night. Beside him stood a woman in black with a notary bag. And behind them both, hands in the pockets of a charcoal overcoat, stood my son. My son smiled at me from the doorway with the same crooked half-smile he had used when he was 6 years old, and there was a broken lamp behind him on the floor. "Hey, Dad." He stepped into room 14 first. Curtis Lang came behind him. The woman in black, notary bag against her hip, came last and closed the door with her shoulder. Darian wore a charcoal overcoat over a navy suit. His hair was shorter than the last time I had seen him, neatly cut over the ears. He had lost weight in the wrong places. The skin under his eyes was the color of paper that had been left in a damp basement. He crossed to me, knelt, took my hand in both of his, and made his voice go soft. "Dad, I know this has been hard. We just want to make everything easier for you. Curtis has the paperwork we talked about. Mr. Hardman over here is just here to notarize. 5 minutes and you can go back to resting." I let my hand stay limp in his. I looked at the wall just past his left ear, the way confused men look at things. "Where is Elaine?" A flicker of something not quite patience crossed his face. "Mom passed. Dad. 3 years ago. We have talked about this." "All right," I said, slow. "All right. But I told the other gentleman last night, I want my own lawyer here. The one Elaine and I used." She drew up our papers. Darian's jaw tightened by a 1/4 inch. "Dad, you don't have a lawyer anymore. Mom's lawyer retired." Barbara stood up from her chair with the satchel already on her shoulder. She put on her brightest church voice.
Oh, Uncle Benson, you have so many visitors today. I will let you all have your privacy. I will come back tomorrow with that lemon cake you like. All right, sweetheart."
She patted my shoulder, smiled at Darian like a stranger smiles at a man in a hallway, and walked out. The door closed behind her. The lock beeped 3 times. Curtis spread the documents on the table. The notary opened her bag and laid out her stamp and journal. I worked my mouth like it was dry. Could I trouble somebody for a cup of water? Just plain. From the tap is fine. Curtis exhaled through his nose for the second time in 12 hours. He looked at the notary. The notary looked at the door, then at her watch.
"I will step out,"
she said. While she was gone, Darian set his phone face up on the Formica table, 2 feet from my left hand, and began murmuring something to Curtis about the deed description. I let my eyes drift down without moving my head. The screen lit with a banner. Sloan. At Mount Washington, with Z. Don't call right now. Last night ran long. Done with the thing today, and I'm yours tonight. I let no muscle in my face change. 47 years of welding helmet down, eyes through the dark glass, hand steady on the rod. A man learns to keep his face still, while the metal underneath is white hot. The screen went dark. Darian's hand came down and flipped the phone over without looking. The notary came back with a paper cup. I took it. I sipped. I let some of it dribble onto my chin and patted at it with a slow, shaking hand. Darian's own phone rang then, the work phone in his coat pocket.
and his face changed in a way I had not seen since the day his Little League team lost the city championship in 1998. He pulled the phone out, looked at it, and his color went one shade closer to the basement paper.
I have to take this.
Curtis, give me 2 minutes. He stepped out into the hall. The door did not close all the way. I heard fragments. The Sewickley file. No, I told you the daughters hired their own counsel. Yes, I am handling it. I bent forward as if to set the cup down. My right hand slid under the edge of the pillow and closed on the burner. I thumbed the screen open under the lip of the table and typed with the pad of one finger. Sloan with Z right now. Mount Washington. Send. A second later, the screen lit. Hold position. Do not sign anything. Moving on them tonight. M. I slid the burner back under the pillow. Darian came back in. The skin under his eyes had gone a full shade grayer. He looked at the spread of paperwork like a man looking at a meal he no longer had appetite for. Curtis, let us push to 2 this afternoon. Dad needs to rest. I have a fire I have to put out. Curtis began gathering the documents with the smooth, quick motions of a man who has done this many times. The notary capped her stamp. I let my head tilt slightly to one side. What day is it, sweetheart? I asked the notary. She paused, kindly.
It is Tuesday, sir. September the 2nd.
Tuesday, I said, as if I were tasting the word. All right, Tuesday. They left. The lock beeped 3 times. I sat very still in the chair. I let the breath I had been holding out, slow, the way you let pressure out of a sealed line. The burner buzzed once on the table. Mr. Mathews. Z is Zahir Bernard, Manhattan art dealer. Owes the wrong people $750,000. Your daughter-in-law is helping him liquidate stolen pieces. We have been tracking him for 9 months. Tonight changes everything. The wall clock above the door ticked once for every second, and I counted them the way I had once counted the ribs of a half-built engine block, because counting kept the rest of my mind quiet. 2 p.m. came. 2:05. 2:10. At 2:17, the lock beeped 3 times, and Barbara Kane walked into room 14 in a gray suit, low heels, briefcase in hand, with Curtis Lang half a step behind her, wearing the face of a man whose afternoon had taken an unexpected turn. Mr. Lang, notice of appearance. I am counsel of record for Mr. Mathews, effective immediately. The proposed signing is hereby continued. We can discuss a new date through proper channels. She slid a stamped court document across the table to him. He read it once. He read it twice. He looked at me. I looked at the wall just past his ear. Thursday, he said. 2 p.m. I will have the notary. Thursday, Barbara said, with my associate present and a full disclosure packet served on me by close of business tomorrow. Curtis left. He did not look back. Barbara squeezed my shoulder once. Hard. The way Elaine used to when she walked past me at the workbench. And then she left too. Because we both understood that anything else we said in that room would be heard by walls that were no longer ours. The afternoon went into evening. I ate a meatloaf I did not taste. I watched a game show in the day room with my hands folded. At 7:40, the burner buzzed under my pillow. Not Mariana's pattern. 3 short, 2 long. A code we had agreed on for Ali. Benny. His voice was different than I had ever heard it in 56 years of friendship. Ali. I went into the house this afternoon. The Shadyside house. I used the spare key you gave me in 2019. Nobody was home. The alarm code was still your wedding anniversary, so they did not change that either. Tell me. I went to the mantel first. The cherrywood box was not there. I looked in the formal living room, the master bedroom, the guest room, the dining room, the library. I looked everywhere a man would put his mother. He stopped. I could hear him breathing. I found the box. Benny. It was in the garage, on a metal shelf above the snowblower. Lid open. Inside was maybe a tablespoon of fine gray dust. That dust was not her. That dust was drywall and ash from somebody's fireplace. There was a paper receipt next to it.
What did the receipt say?
Estate cleanout services. McKnight Hauling. August 18th. The line item said, contents of guest room and garage. Miscellaneous. $240. August 18th. Benny. That was 4 days after your birthday. 3 days after they put you in there. I held the phone away from my mouth for a moment, so he would not hear what came out of me. When I brought it back, I made my voice flat. You are sure? I called the hauling company an hour ago. Pretended to be a relative looking for an heirloom. The load went to the Monroeville transfer station the morning of the 19th. From there to a landfill in Imperial. I am sorry, Benny. I am so sorry. Thank you. Ali, what do you want me to do? Go home. Pour yourself a drink. I will call you tomorrow. I hung up. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long second. Then I stood up and walked to the window and pressed my forehead against the cold glass and let the parking lot lamp below burn into my closed eyes. Don't let them put me on a shelf. Benny, take me home. I had said yes. I had said I promise. I had carried a cherrywood box out of a hospital corridor in 2022 with both hands wrapped around it like it was the last warm thing in the world. I had given it to my son to hold for 3 weeks while a doctor looked at my heart. I did not move from the window for a long time. When I turned away from it, my face was wet, and I let it be wet. Because there was nobody in the room to see, and the room itself was already going to remember tonight whether I gave it permission or not. I walked into the small bathroom. I turned the cold water on. I splashed it on my face twice. I looked at the man in the small mirror above the sink. He was 71 years old, and his eyes were red, and he had failed at one of the 2 promises he had made to his wife. But the second promise was still in front of him. Make them small. Then make them sorry. Then come home and build something. I dried my face. I turned the light off. I walked back into room 14 and sat down in the chair by the door. And inside me, something that had been molten all week cooled and set and became something I could pick up and use. The burner buzzed on the bed. Mr. Mathews. Good news and bad news. We have Sloan and Zahir on camera entering a unit on Grandview Avenue at 6:52 p.m. He has a key. She has a duffel bag we believe contains 2 pieces from the Aldridge Gallery theft in February. We have enough to move on them within 48 hours. The bad news. Curtis Lang filed an emergency motion at 4 this afternoon to transfer you to a higher acuity facility in Wheeling, West Virginia. He cited combative behavior and refusal to cooperate with medical assessment. Hearing is Friday morning. If it goes through, you are out of Pennsylvania jurisdiction by Saturday night. How long do we have? 72 hours. Mr. Mathews. We need to move our timeline up. Heritage LLC makes its first offer tomorrow morning. The ventilation grate above the door hummed at the same pitch as a poorly tuned alternator, and I listened to it for an hour before the burner phone finally buzzed on my mattress at 9:04 in the morning. Howard Rennie just delivered the offer to Darian's office on Liberty Avenue. $900,000 cash for the shop building and the parcel. 48-hour decision window. 21-day close. Howard is a working broker, Mr. Mathews. He has no idea who he is fronting for. He just knows the wire is real. Darian's reaction. Quiet for the first 30 seconds. Then he asked who the buyer was. Howard said the buyer is a privately held investment LLC out of Pittsburgh. Asset class diversification, low public profile. Darian asked if it was negotiable. Howard said the principal was firm,
But he could carry one counter.
Good. Tell me about the house. Linda Voss is in the parking lot at the Shady Side Whole Foods waiting on Sloane to come out of her Pilates class. We had hoped to deliver to both of them, but Sloane stayed on Grandview Avenue last night. Linda will hand the offer to Darian by 10:30. $850 cash. Same terms. 48 hours.
Sloane does not come home anymore. She has not slept in the Shadyside house in 11 nights. Mr. Mathews, that is one of the things we will be talking about more. I closed my eyes for a beat and let that fact sit on the workbench of my mind, beside the rest of them. The burner went quiet while Mariana coordinated something on her end. The wall clock ticked. The ventilation hummed. She came back at 9:43. Wiretab captured a call between Darian and Sloane at 9:36. He told her he needed cash in 3 weeks or, quote, Tony Greco is going to walk into the office, end quote. Who is Tony Greco? Tony Greco runs a sports book out of a tile importing business in Bloomfield. Your son has owed him $480,000 since April. We have known about Tony for 2 years. We have not had enough on him to move. But Tony's tile importing business shares a CPA with Hartwell and Beck. And that CPA also services a Delaware LLC that pays the rent on the Grandview Avenue unit, where Zahir Bernard sleeps 4 nights a week. I sat down on the edge of the chair. I let that geometry assemble itself in the air above the table the way I used to let a stress diagram assemble itself above a blueprint. It is one network. It is one network, Mr. Mathews. Your son, your daughter-in-law's boyfriend, your son's bookmaker, and the law firm that has been quit-claiming widows out of their houses for the last 3 years, all share an accountant and at least one judge. We have suspected this for 9 months. Your case is the lever that opens the safe. What did Sloane tell him? Sloane told him to sign whatever they put in front of him and to take whatever he could get. She did not ask which offers. Good. The morning rolled forward in pieces. I ate a piece of dry toast and a wedge of cantaloupe and made small, confused noises when the aide asked if I wanted juice. I watched the wall clock and the door and the ventilation grate and waited for the burner to buzz the way a man waits for a furnace to reach temperature. At 1:17 in the afternoon, it buzzed. Darian countered. 1.1 million on the shop. Howard Rennie pushed back to 950 final, take it or leave it, on the principal's instruction. Darian took 14 minutes to call back. He signed at 1:09. Closing scheduled for September the 23rd. I made no sound on the house. Darian counted 900. Linda Voss said the principal would split the difference at 875. Darian held. Linda came back at 900, accepting. He signed at 112. Closing September the 24th. 900 for the house Elaine and I had bought in 1976 for $31,000 and paid off in 1994 with the patent advance. 950 for the shop that had fed us for 47 years. On paper, by the close of business on September the 24th, I would own them both again. Through a vehicle that, on its face, had nothing to do with me. Through a trust my wife had built 13 years before this nightmare started. Because she had looked at our son one night across a Thanksgiving table in 2011 and seen something in him I had not yet seen. I let one long breath out through my nose. Mr. Mathews, one more thing. Go! The hearing on Friday. Curtis Lang has retained an expert witness, a psychiatrist. The doctor will testify that you are not competent to oppose the West Virginia transfer, and that any counsel you have retained is the product of confusion. Name: Marcus Halsey. I let that name settle. Halsey signed the original affidavit. Yes, sir. The same Marcus Halsey from the ex parte petition on August 11th. He has now been engaged to certify, under oath in open court, that the man who is opposing him is incapable of opposing him. I looked at the wall clock. I looked at the ventilation grate. Then we put him under oath.
and we let him say it. And then we hand the judge the recording from August 11th. That is exactly what we are going to do, Mr. Mathews. A blade of morning sun came through the gap in the cheap blinds of room 14 and laid itself across the floor in a yellow stripe, and I sat in the chair and watched it travel a quarter inch to the east while the burner phone warmed in my hand. Mr. Mathews, I'm going to tell you something now that I have not been authorized to tell anyone outside the Department of Justice until last Tuesday. I'm telling you because tomorrow morning you are going to walk into a courtroom, and you are going to need to know what kind of room you are walking into. Go ahead. Judge Sutton Moody has been under federal investigation since November of last year. Not by my unit, by the Public Corruption Section out of the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District. They've been on him for 10 months. 10 months. Hartwell and Beck have been wiring quarterly contributions to a fund registered in Nassau, Bahamas, ostensibly for continuing judicial education programs. The fund pays for 2 annual conferences, neither of which Judge Moody has ever attended. The fund also pays a stipend directly into a personal account in his wife's maiden name that has totaled $340,000 over 18 months. I let that figure go through me without leaving a mark. He does not know you are watching. He does not know we are watching. Hartwell and Beck do not know we are watching them watch him. Until last Tuesday, my investigation and theirs were running on parallel tracks, with neither side aware of the other. When I filed the brief on your case, the cross-reference flagged at DOJ, and the 2 files were merged within 48 hours. What does that mean for tomorrow? It means tomorrow's hearing is a trap with 2 jaws. Mr. Mathews, Judge Moody will preside as scheduled. Dr. Halsey will testify as scheduled. Curtis Lang will argue for the transfer to Wheeling. And throughout all of it, sitting in the back of the courtroom in a charcoal suit with a federal credential in her purse, will be an assistant United States attorney named Brianna Holloway. She is there as an observer of record. If Judge Moody rules against you using the Halsey testimony, he commits a federal act on federal interest, and Miss Holloway will be in a position to escalate the warrant that has been sitting on her desk since Monday. And if he rules for me, then he is signaling that he knows somebody is watching. And Miss Holloway escalates the warrant anyway, because at that point, we know he has been tipped. Either outcome ends in his arrest. The first outcome ends it cleanly. I sat with that for a moment. A man does not often get to stand inside a trap of his own and watch the jaws close on someone else. And the appropriate response is silence. What do you need from me tomorrow? I need you to be the quietest man in that room. No matter what Halsey says about your mind, no matter what Moody says about your competence, no matter what Curtis says about your son's love and concern, you sit. You do not react. You let Barbara work. You let the recording do its job at the moment Barbara introduces it. Miss Holloway will read the room. Understood. One more piece. After the hearing, our team executes the warrant on Grandview Avenue at 7 p.m. Zahir Bernard, Sloan Corona, and at least one piece from the Aldridge Gallery theft will be in custody by 8. Tony Greco's tile warehouse will be served simultaneously. By tomorrow at midnight, the network will be broken open from 4 directions at once. And Darian? Darian we save for last. Mr. Mathews. We want him to see his world end in pieces before he understands he is the last piece. I closed my eyes for the length of one slow breath. Then I opened them, and the yellow stripe of sun had moved another quarter inch. The day went past in the soft, slow motion of a man waiting for an oven to reach a temperature. I ate. I watched television. I nodded when an aide asked if my back was sore. At 7:42 in the evening, the lock beeped 3 times, and Brenda's voice came through the door first. Mr. Mathews, your niece is here for a quick visit. 15 minutes. Aeneas Hopkins stepped into the room in a navy blazer and a tired smile, and closed the door softly behind her. She set a small paper bag of pears from the Strip District Market on the table. She sat down across from me, and for the first time since I had been brought here, I looked at the face of the woman whose number I had carried under the cuff of my flannel for 11 days. She was younger than I had expected, maybe 28. She had her grandfather's chin and her grandmother's careful eyes.
Sir,
She said, "I brought you a second copy of the recording. Different drive, different encoding, in case the first one ever fails. Slip it into your shoe before I leave." "Thank you." Tomorrow morning, when they walk you into the courtroom, do not look at Judge Moody. Look at Dr. Halsey. Look him straight in the face when he raises his right hand and takes the oath. He will not be able to hold your eyes. I have watched him in 3 other hearings. He looks at the table. Make him look at you. That alone will help Miss Holloway. I will. When she stood to leave, I touched her hand for 1 second. Tell your grandfather I owe him a beer when this is over. He already opened one, sir. He says he is keeping it cold. She left. I heard her steps in the hallway. Then I heard Brenda's voice, low, stopping her. I heard a short exchange I could not make out through the door. 2 minutes later, the lock beeped 3 times, and Aeneas came back in. Her face was different. "Mr. Mathews, the nurse stopped me in the hall. She told me to tell you something." "What?" She said, "Tell him I am sorry. Tell him my mother was in a place like this in 2017. I sat down slowly. I put one hand flat against my chest, over the pocket where Elaine's letter still lived. For the first time in 11 days, someone inside this building had picked a side. The grey suit lay across the foot of the bed at 6 a.m., pressed by Barbara the night before. Elaine had chosen it for me at Brooks Brothers in 1993. She had said the words, "That one, Benny, you look like a man people listen to." I dressed slow. I tied the tie 4 in hand. I slid her cream envelope into the inside breast pocket, so it sat just above my heart. The man in the small bathroom mirror was not the man who had been brought to room 14 11 days ago. Same face, different eyes. The transport van arrived at 8:20. Brenda walked me to the door personally and touched my elbow once at the threshold. She did not speak. Allegheny County Courthouse on Grant Street was Romanesque revival stone Elaine and I had walked past 100 times on the way to lunch. Barbara met me at the security checkpoint in a black suit and a single string of pearls. Courtroom 406. Curtis Lang at the petitioner's table, Dr. Marcus Halsey beside him, paging through notes he had not written himself. Judge Sutton Moody on the bench, robed, the color of a man who had not slept well in some number of nights. In the third pew from the back, on the left side, sat a woman in charcoal with her hands folded. I did not look at her. Curtis opened. 3 minutes of careful sentences about my son's love, my deterioration, the kindness of the proposed facility in Wheeling. Halsey took the stand. I looked at him when he raised his right hand. I held the look the way I used to hold the line on a torque wrench. Steady, no give. His hand wavered an inch as the bailiff finished the oath. He looked at the table. He looked at the rail. He never once looked at me. He testified 9 minutes about cognitive decline and the affidavit he had sworn on the 8th of August. Barbara stood for cross. She let 3 seconds of silence sit in the room. "Dr. Halsey, on what date did you examine my client?" "August the 8th, in his home." "At what time?" "Approximately 10:15. "For how long?" 42 minutes. Barbara slid a sheet to the bailiff, who carried it to the witness stand. "This is a certified record from Allegheny General Cardiology, dated August the 8th. My client checked in at 8:50 for a cardiac stress test and was on a treadmill connected to 12 electrodes from 10:05 until 11:20. Would you like to revise your testimony, Doctor?" Halsey's mouth opened, closed, opened, The date may be. I would need to consult my records. Your records are appended as Exhibit B. They are in your own handwriting. Moody shifted on the bench. His tablet was forgotten.
Barbara opened her satchel. Your Honor, I move to admit as Exhibit C an unaltered audio recording, 37 minutes, of the ex parte hearing held in this courtroom on the 11th of August. It captures the voice of every party present, including this court. We are prepared to authenticate through a court reporter under oath.
The room went quiet. Moody looked at the recording in Barbara's hand. He looked at Curtis. He looked at the woman in the third pew. His face went through 3 colors. He cleared his throat. The court will take this matter under advisement. Petitioner's motion for emergency transfer is held in abeyance. We are adjourned. 11:42 a.m. In the hallway, the woman in charcoal walked past me without slowing. She did not turn her head. Her words came low and clean. Mr. Mathews. The recording will be reviewed by the chief judge within 48 hours. The transfer is effectively dead. Brianna Holloway. She kept walking. I did not turn to watch her go. The van took me back to Maplewood by 12:40. Brenda did not meet me at the door. Lunch was a bowl of chicken noodle soup I ate 2 spoons of. I lay down on the bed in the gray suit because the gray suit had earned the right to be lain down in. At 3:11, a folded napkin appeared under my door with my afternoon jello. Your son is here. Alone. No lawyer. He looks bad. B. At 3:17, the lock beeped 3 times. Darian closed the door behind him with his shoulder. He wore the charcoal overcoat from Wednesday. His eyes were red, the way a man's eyes are red when he has not slept and has been crying without quite knowing it. His right hand was in the pocket of the overcoat. Dad, they are moving on Sloan tonight. The phones went quiet at noon. I need you to sign something. Not the deed. Something else. Sit down, son. He did not sit. His hand came out of the pocket. A small Beretta, dull, blued, safety on. He did not point it. He let me see it. Just listen for 1 minute. Dad, I need you to sign a release, saying you were never coerced, saying everything Curtis did was your idea. The burner phone began to buzz softly under the pillow behind my back. Darian's eyes moved to the sound. The color of them changed. What is that, Dad? It is a phone, son. A friend of mine is waiting for me to call her back in 10 minutes. If I do not, she will send people to this room. Darian's eyes did not leave the pillow. I stood up slow. I reached behind me, lifted the pillow, and put the burner phone face up on the small Formica table where he could see it. The screen showed M.S. calling and a clock counting down on the missed call notice. I sat back down. Sit, Darian. Put the gun on the table or keep it in your lap. Either way. But sit down. I'm going to tell you some things. And when I am finished, you are going to decide what kind of man you are. He sat. The Beretta stayed on his thigh. I spoke the way I used to talk to a new hire on his first day in the shop when I was teaching him to read a blueprint. Slow. 1 line at a time. No wasted words. Your mother did not leave me an $80,000 savings account. She left me a trust worth $14 million. She set it up in 2011. His mouth opened a 1/4 inch. I am not worth $800,000, son. As of close of business yesterday, I am worth $64,700,000. Most of it is in an alloy patent and a stake in United Steel Pittsburgh. I have held the stock since 1991. He blinked. Carbo Steel 9. The alloy and the turbine sleeves Boeing buys. The bearing housings the Navy buys. That is mine. I invented it in the back of the shop in 1987. Your mother told me to ask for stock instead of cash. I asked. They paid. The Beretta slid an inch on his thigh. He did not seem to notice. The buyer who paid you $950,000 for the shop 2 days ago is not a Pittsburgh investor. That is me. Through an LLC your mother established in 2011 because she saw what kind of man you were going to become before I had the eyes to see it.
His face went the color of cooling solder.
The buyer who paid you $900,000 for the house. Also me. Closing in 18 days. You will receive every dollar. The money will move through your account, and every wire will be traced by the FBI to the people you owe. Dad, I am not finished, son. Sit still. He sat still. The recording of the August 11th hearing is in the hands of an assistant United States attorney named Brianna Holloway. Judge Sutton Moody will be arrested within 48 hours. Hartwell and Beck will be served a sealed indictment by Tuesday. His hand began to shake. He did not lift it from his thigh.
Your wife has slept on Grandview Avenue for 11 consecutive nights with a man named Zahir Bernard, an art dealer out of Manhattan. He owes $750,000 to people who do not file lawsuits. The FBI has photographs, and they have inventory from the Aldridge Gallery theft in February. They go through that door at 7 p.m. tonight.
His breath caught.
Tony Greco, Bloomfield. The $480,000 you owe him. The tile warehouse goes at the same time. He will be in federal custody before midnight. The Beretta slid off his thigh and hit the linoleum with a small, dull sound. He did not pick it up. He put his hands over his face, and the sound that came out of him was not a sound I had heard him make since he was 9 years old, and his dog had been hit by a delivery truck on Murray Avenue. I did not move. I did not go to him. I sat in the chair by the window and let him cry into his hands the way a man has to cry when a wall he built falls on him. After a long minute, I spoke once more, and only once. I could not keep one promise to your mother, son. The one about her ashes. I will live with that. But she gave me a second one. She told me, make them small, then make them sorry, then come home and build something. I am in the second part. The burner buzzed on the table. I picked it up. Mr. Mathews, we have eyes on the corridor camera. Are you safe? I am safe. Send them in. My son is finished. I set the burner down. 20 seconds later, the lock beeped 3 times. The door opened. Brenda stood in the hallway light with her arms at her sides. Behind her, in dark windbreakers with yellow letters across the chest, stood 2 federal agents. The first agent through the door knelt and picked up the Beretta with a gloved hand and slid it into a clear evidence bag without a word. The second agent read my son his rights in a voice that was neither kind nor unkind. He used Darian's full name. Darian Mathews Hansen. You are under arrest for possession of a firearm by a person under federal indictment, for assault on a vulnerable adult, and on the warrants previously filed in the Western District. Darian did not resist. He did not look away from his hands. When they walked him out, he turned his head once at the threshold and looked back at me. There was no hate in the look. He nodded one small nod and let them lead him into the hallway. Brenda stood by the door until the lock beeped 3 times behind them. Then she spoke to me for the first time as a person. My mother died alone in a place like this 8 years ago, after my brother signed papers. I have worked at Maplewood for 5 years to watch who was doing this to people like her. When your file came across my desk, I sent your name to someone I trusted. That is how Aeneas Hopkins knew. I looked at her for a long moment. You started this. I started this, Mr. Mathews. I'm sorry I could not start it sooner. I stood up. I walked to her. I took her hand and held it the way you hold the hand of someone who has done something you do not have words for. She let me. Her eyes were wet, but she did not let them spill. Thank you, Brenda. Go home, sir. At 6:47 p.m., Mariana arrived in person and walked me out the front entrance of Maplewood Memory Care for the last time.
The sodium lamp in the parking lot buzzed against the dusk. I carried Elaine's letter in my breast pocket and the suit jacket over my arm, and nothing else. I had come in with nothing. I left with nothing. The difference was the air. In the car, she drove me towards Squirrel Hill on Forbes Avenue and gave me the night in pieces. 714, Grandview Avenue. Sloan Corona and Zahir Bernard in custody. 2 pieces from the Aldridge Gallery in a duffel by the door.
Good. 731, Tile Warehouse, Bloomfield. Tony Greco and 3 associates. Good. 802, Mount Lebanon. Curtis Lang taken at his front door without incident. Good.
The street lights of Squirrel Hill came up past the window the way they had come up for 49 years. Murray Avenue, Forbes, the bakery Elaine had liked, the branch library where I had taken Darian when he was small enough to ride on my shoulders. 3 blocks from my house, Mariana slowed the car and pulled to the curb under a chestnut tree.
Mr. Mathews, there is one more thing I need to tell you before you go inside. About your wife. The air left me by half. Tell me. I have been holding this for a week. Ali was right about the cherrywood box. It has been empty since the 18th of August. But your wife's ashes did not go to McKnight Hauling. That was theater. Darian needed to tell Sloan he had handled the sentimental problem. On the 17th of August, one day before the clean-out receipt, someone went to the Shadyside house at 4 in the afternoon and took the actual urn. He left a note for Darian on the mantel. The note said, "I will keep her safe until you come back." It was signed A.H. I felt the air come back into me 1 degree at a time. Aeneas, not Aeneas. Mr. Mathews. Ali Hood went into that house on the 17th. Not last week. He saw the mantel empty in his first visit, and he took the urn before Darian could think of what to do with it. He lied to you on the phone 4 days ago because he did not want you carrying the weight of hope into a courtroom in case the hearing did not go our way. I closed my eyes. I did not cry. I had cried at the window in room 14, and that had been my one allowed crying. I sat in the seat and let what was true settle into me, the way a heated bearing settles into its housing as it cools. Drive me the last 3 blocks, she drove. The porch light at 2112 Beechwood Boulevard was on. The hydrangea Elaine had planted in 1979 was in late summer bloom against the brick. The Dodge Ram sat in the driveway where Ali had moved it back the day before. A figure stood on the porch in a Steelers cap and a windbreaker, hands holding something small and square in front of him at chest height. The shape of him I would have known in any light on any street in any city in this country. Ali Hood came down the 3 porch steps slow because his knees were no better than mine. He stopped on the walk in front of me. He held out the cherrywood box with both hands. Welcome home, Marine. I took the box from his hands. It was warmer than the air. I do not know how that is possible after a week in a garage, but it was. The weight of it was the weight I remembered carrying out of the hospital in Oakland in March of 2022. I held it against my chest with both hands. Ali stepped close and put one hand on my shoulder. Mariana stood by the open car door and did not approach. For a long moment, no one on Beechwood Boulevard said anything. A train whistle sounded from the Monongahela in the distance. A dog barked 2 streets over. You lied to me, Ali. Yes, Benny. I did. Thank you. Come inside. The Iron City is cold. I walked up the 3 steps to my own front door with my wife in my arms. The kettle whistled at 6:15 Saturday morning in the kitchen on Beechwood Boulevard. And I let it whistle a second longer than I needed to, because the sound was a sound this house had not made in 2 weeks. Elaine's cherrywood box sat on the dining room sideboard where the wedding photographs lived. I had put it there at midnight, between the picture from the courthouse in 1972 and the one from the porch on our 40th anniversary. The box belonged to that company now, and would, until I decided what came next. I drank the tea standing at the window above the sink. The hydrangea was still in bloom. A cardinal landed on the feeder Elaine had hung in 2004 and chose a sunflower seed with the same picky precision cardinals have always had. At 9:17, the television in the den, which Ali had turned to KDKA the night before and left running on low, said the name Sutton Moody, and I walked into the room and sat down on the arm of the sofa. A reporter stood on a fairway at Oakmont Country Club. Behind her, two men in windbreakers walked a man in golf clothes toward a black sedan. The golf cleats clicked on asphalt. Allegheny County Common Pleas Judge Sutton Moody was taken into federal custody at 9:14 this morning on charges that include honest services fraud, conspiracy, and acceptance of unlawful gratuities. The arrest comes 48 hours after a hearing in his own courtroom in which sealed evidence was introduced. I muted the television and let the picture run without sound. The man in the golf clothes did not resist. He looked like a man who had been waiting for the cleats to make that particular sound for some time. At 10:30, Barbara and Mariana came up the walk together. Barbara carried a leather folder. Mariana carried 2 paper cups of coffee from the place on Murray Avenue. Chief Judge Whitmore signed it at 8:50 this morning, Barbara said, before she had her coat off. The ex parte guardianship order of August 11th is vacated nunc pro tunc, which means it never legally existed. Your driver's license is reactivated. Your bank accounts are unfrozen. Your medical power of attorney returns to its prior holder, which is the trust, which is you. Welcome back, Benny. I took the folder. I did not open it. Thank you, Barbara. A knock came at the front door at 11:05. Brenda stood on the porch in jeans and a windbreaker with a small cardboard box in her hands. She did not come in. She set the box on the entryway table and stepped back.
Your things, Mr. Mathews. The front desk wanted me to mail them. I asked to bring them.
Inside the box were my phone, my wallet with the $42 and the Niagara Falls photograph intact, my shaving kit, 2 flannel shirts, and a smaller clear bag. Inside the clear bag was Elaine's wedding ring. I lifted it out. I worked it onto my left pinky, slow. The gold was cool, then warm, the way it had been for 44 years. I had not worn it on that finger in 11 days. The skin underneath had paled to the color of the inside of an oyster shell. Within an hour, it would be the right color again. I looked up at Brenda. Come in for coffee. Another day, sir. I have a shift at noon. She laughed. I closed the door and pressed my forehead against the wood for 1 count of 3.
In the afternoon, I asked Ali to drive me down to the shop.
The Dodge Ram took Forbes to Liberty, to Smallman, the way it had always taken it.
The Strip District smelled like coffee and produce and diesel, the way it had smelled for 50 years. We parked in front of the brick building. The sign was gone from above the door. The empty bolt holes in the lintel looked like missing teeth.
I had a key on my ring that they had not bothered to take, because Curtis Lang had not known to ask for it. The lock turned. The door swung in on the smell I had been breathing my whole adult life. Cool oil, cold steel, old wood. Faint trace of the cherry stain Elaine had used on the office paneling in 1996. Most of the heavy machinery was gone. The South Bend lathe, the Bridgeport mill, the TIG welder. They had been carried out and trucked somewhere on August 15th. The shadows of where they had stood were lighter rectangles on the concrete, surrounded by the darker, oil-stained floor. A man could read a shop the way another man reads a poem, but the building was the building. The workbench I had built in 1977 still ran along the back wall. The floor safe under it was still there. I knelt and turned the dial by feel. Inside, the Carbosteel 9 paperwork, the original patent file, and the small velvet box that held Elaine's mother's pearls, all sat where they had sat
for 23 years.
Ali waited at the door without coming in, because he understood.
I walked to the office in the back. Elaine's chair was still behind the small desk where she had kept the books for 30 years. The seat cushion was worn in the shape of her. I sat down sideways on the corner of the desk and looked out through the office window into the empty shop floor.
I am going to build her back, Ali.
I know you are, Benny.
The phone in my pocket buzzed.
The screen said, B. Holloway.
Mr. Mathews, your son has requested to see you. Tomorrow at the county jail, 11 a.m. You do not have to go, but he is asking.
Snow lay along the limestone steps of the federal courthouse on Grant Street the second week of January, and I walked up them in the grey suit and the old black Oxfords with Barbara Kane at my left elbow.
4 months had passed since I had walked out of room 14. In those 4 months, Judge Sutton Moody had been arraigned, denied bail, and was awaiting trial on 27 federal counts. Hartwell and Beck had surrendered its charter. Dr. Marcus Halsey had given up his medical license in exchange for a cooperation agreement. Tony Greco had taken a plea and was 3 years into a 15-year term in West Virginia. Curtis Lang had been disbarred and would be sentenced in March. Zahir Bernard had been extradited to New York to face additional charges from the Aldridge Gallery theft and was sitting in a Manhattan jail without bond.
Today belonged to Sloan Corona. The courtroom on the 8th floor was larger than the one on Grant Street where Moody had presided. The pews were paler oak. The federal seal above the bench was twice the size of the state seal. I sat in the second pew on the left side, behind the prosecution table. Brianna Holloway stood up from that table when she saw me come in. She nodded once. She did not smile, because we were not in a place for smiles. She turned back to her files. A side door opened, and Sloan walked in flanked by a marshal. She wore a charcoal blazer that was not from any designer I had heard her name in live streams. Her hair was pulled into a low bun. She wore no makeup. The 412,000 viewers she had spoken to from a marble bathroom counter were not here today. Today, there was a room of 31 people, 12 of them a jury, and her eyes moved across the gallery once and once only, and passed across me without stopping, the way her eyes had passed across me for 7 years. I held the look anyway. I did not need her to see me. I needed me to see her. Brianna's opening took 22 minutes. Conspiracy to commit elder financial abuse, wire fraud, conspiracy to launder monetary instruments, receipt and possession of property known to have been stolen, namely 2 oil paintings appraised at $1.6 million taken from the Aldridge Gallery in February of last year. The defense opened on a single theme. My client was a young woman manipulated by a controlling and indebted husband. She did not understand the scope of what was being done. She is sorry. The wiretap recordings ended that defense by the end of the second day. Her own voice came out of the speakers in the well of the court. Just sign whatever they put in front of you. Take whatever we can get. Her own voice telling Zahir while running water in the background of his Grandview apartment. His dad is a punchline. 80 grand in a savings account. The house and the shop are all we're working with. I watched the jury during that recording. 12 faces. 3 of them looked at me. The other 9 looked at the speaker. The jury was out 4 hours. When the foreman read the verdict, the word guilty was said 5 times in the space of 90 seconds. Sloan stood with her hands flat on the defense table, and her head dropped 2 inches and stayed there. When the marshal walked her out, she turned her head and looked at me for the first time without anyone else in the building between us. There was no apology in the look. There was no anger. There was only the recognition of one person looking at another person across a distance neither of them was going to cross again. I did not look down. I looked back.
Outside the courthouse on Grant Street, the snow had picked up. A reporter in a wool coat stepped into my path with a microphone and a cameraman behind her.
Mr. Mathews. Anything to say?
I stopped on the sidewalk. I waited until the cameraman had the shot framed. I waited a beat longer because I wanted what I said to come out the way I meant it. My wife used to say, "People show you who they are when they think you have nothing." She was right then. She is right now. That is all I have to say. I walked past her to where Ali had the Dodge Ram idling at the curb. In the truck, Ali handed me a white envelope without speaking. Pittsburgh County Jail, return address. My son's handwriting on the front in pencil. The stamp was crooked, the way Darian's stamps had been crooked since he was 8 years old and learning to mail his own birthday thank you cards. I held the envelope in both hands. We drove home through the snow on Beechwood Boulevard, and I did not open it on the way. In the kitchen, I set it on the table next to the salt and pepper and the small dish where Elaine had kept her reading glasses for 40 years. I poured a glass of water. I sat down in the chair I had sat in for 49 winters. I looked at the envelope. I did not open it yet. I took the small kitchen knife and ran it under the flap of the envelope at 10 that night. Slow. The way a man opens a thing he knows will weigh more once it is opened. 3 pages. Loose-leaf paper. Yellow legal. The kind a man gets in a county jail because it is what they hand him. My son's handwriting in pencil had not changed since he was 16. It still leaned a 1/4 inch to the right. The G's still had that long, unnecessary tail. He did not start with, "Dear Dad." He started with, "Dad." The rest came in plain sentences without ornaments. He admitted everything. Not in a lawyer's way. In the way a man admits things to himself in the middle of the night when nobody else is in the room. He named the wire transfers. He named the date he had first taken the floor safe key off my key ring when I was in the hospital for the prostate biopsy in 2017 and made a copy at the hardware store on Murray Avenue. He named Tony Greco. He named Curtis. He did not ask for forgiveness. He wrote about being 7 years old in the shop on a Saturday morning, learning to drive a Phillips screwdriver into pine. He wrote about being 9 when the dog had been hit on Murray Avenue, and I had carried him home in my arms and not said a word for the whole walk. He wrote about being 12 and Mom bringing an apple pie down to the shop on his birthday, and the 3 of us eating it on the workbench off paper plates. The last paragraph was the one I read 3 times. "Dad, I knew Mom set up the trust. I read the paperwork in your floor safe when I was 22. I never told you. I thought I had time to become the kind of man she would leave it to. Then I ran out of time." I put the pages down on the kitchen table. I sat for a long time without moving. Then I stood up and walked to the dining room sideboard and put my right hand on the cherrywood box. I left it there for the length of a slow breath. The next morning I told Ali I needed to go to the county jail on Wednesday. He did not ask why. Wednesday came cold and bright. The Allegheny County Jail on 2nd Avenue is a tall building of pale stone next to the Monongahela. The visitation room had thick glass partitions and gray plastic chairs and a row of black handsets on cords. I sat down at booth 4. I waited 5 minutes. The door on his side opened and my son walked in. He was thinner. His jaw was sharper than I remembered. His hair had been cut by somebody who had not been paid to care. The orange of the jumpsuit took the color out of the rest of him. When he saw me, his face did not change, but his shoulders dropped an inch on the way to the chair. He sat. He picked up the handset. I picked up mine. I spoke first. "You asked for 1 sentence. I am listening." He looked at the table between us for a long moment. Then he looked at me. "Dad, I am sorry. Not for what I did to you. I do not get to be sorry for that. I am sorry I was not him. The son in the shop on Saturdays. I knew which one you wanted. And I could not be him. And I hated you for being able to wait for him. I will live with that. Thank you for coming." He set the handset down on the metal shelf. He stood up.
He walked to the door on his side, and he did not turn around.
I sat in the chair on my side with the handset still in my hand for another 10 seconds. I listened to the small electric hum of the line that no longer had anyone on the other end of it. A guard at the end of the row came over when I stood.
Sir, any message to leave for the inmate?
I thought about it. Tell him I waited a long time. Tell him I am still here.
Yes, sir.
Outside, the snow had picked up again. Ollie had the Dodge Ram running at the curb with the heater on the second setting because the first setting was too hot for old men. I got in. He did not ask. I did not tell. He drove me up 2nd Avenue and across the 10th Street Bridge and back through Oakland and up the hill into Squirrel Hill. And the snow came down soft against the windshield, and the wipers moved in the rhythm I had listened to in this truck for 33 years. We pulled into the driveway on Beechwood Boulevard. I did not get out yet.
Ali.
Yes, Benny. Next week we start rebuilding the shop. And I want to add one thing. An apprenticeship. For kids who do not have a father to teach them how to turn a screwdriver. He looked at me across the cab. His eyes were the same eyes that had been 20 years old on a hillside outside Quezon. I will start making calls Monday, Benny. The TIG welder fired up for the first time in 14 months on a Tuesday morning in May. And the sound came through the new sheet metal of the shop roof and out onto Smallman Street. And I stood on the sidewalk in front of the building and listened to it the way a man listens to a heart monitor when somebody he loves is on the table. The new sign above the door said, Mathews Machine Works, in the same green and gold lettering Elaine had hand-painted in 1978. Below it, in smaller black letters, was a second line, Elaine Blackburn Mathews, apprenticeship. We had cut the ribbon at 8 that morning. Barbara had brought the scissors. Allie had held one end of the ribbon, and Brenda had held the other. Mariana had come up from Washington for the day. Aeneas Hopkins, who was finishing her 2nd year of night law school at Duquesne, had brought her grandfather. Brianna Holloway had sent a bouquet of yellow roses with a card that said only, "For Mr. Mathews, who taught us how to wait." 4 apprentices stood inside the open bay door in clean new coveralls. The first was a boy of 17 named Caleb, Brenda's grandson. The boy who played the trumpet badly and whose mother had died last spring of an opioid she had not meant to take. He had Brenda's eyes and her stubborn chin, and he held a Phillips screwdriver in his right hand like it was a foreign object. I walked over to him and put my hand under his hand and turned his grip a 1/4 inch so the heel of his palm sat where it needed to sit. "There," I said. "Now the screw cannot win." He looked up at me. He nodded. I had taught Darian the same correction at the same age. The hands had been smaller. The shop had been younger. The man teaching the boy had been 43 years old and had not yet learned half of what he would learn. A man does not always get to know how a thing comes back around. Sometimes he does. The cherrywood box was not on the sideboard at home anymore. I had moved it 3 weeks ago to the office in the back of the shop. On a small oak shelf I had built above the desk, where Elaine had kept the books for 30 years. The chair she had sat in was still under the desk. The shape of her was still in the cushion. The box sat at the level of her shoulders. She was where she had always been on a Tuesday morning in May, watching the floor, making sure the numbers added up. That was how I kept the second half of the promise. I had visited Darian twice a month since the sentencing. Federal Correctional Institution, Loretto, about 90 minutes east of Pittsburgh, off Route 22. 14 years on the financial counts. He would be 61 when he came out. We did not say much across the table. He asked about the shop, I told him. He asked about Brenda's grandson, I told him. Sometimes he asked about his mother. I told him about the cherrywood box on the oak shelf, and his eyes would fill and not spill. And that was how we knew we were still father and son. At 7 that evening, Ali and I sat on the porch on Beechwood Boulevard, with 2 bottles of Iron City and the early summer light coming sideways across the hydrangea. A train whistle came up from the Monongahela. Ali. Yes, Benny. She was right. About what?
Benny. I took a slow pull from the bottle. I watched the light catch the gold rim of Elaine's ring on my pinky. About what a man is measured by. It is not the steel he sells. It is not the patent he holds. It is not the savings account in his name. A man is measured by what he builds that he does not get to use. By the bench somebody else's grandson learns on. By the apprentice who will outlive him. By the promise he keeps after the person he made it to is gone. Ollie was quiet for a long beat.
You learned that in the Marine Corps.
Benny. I learned it in a kitchen in Altoona in 1971, from a waitress with a peace sign on her apron. I just took 54 years to put it into words. Ali raised his bottle. I raised mine. I touched it to his. I had come home, so that is my story. I am sitting here on this porch tonight, 72 years old, and I'm telling it to you because somewhere in this country tonight, there is a man my age sitting in a room he does not own anymore. And somewhere there is a son holding a pen over a paper his father should never sign. And somewhere there is a daughter-in-law smiling for a camera that does not know what she really is. If any of this sounds familiar to you, I want you to know two things. The people who love you the most do not always look like the people who share your last name. And the moment to start paying attention is the moment somebody tells you not to.
I have one question for you tonight, friend. Could you have forgiven my son? Tell me in the comments below. I read them. So does Ali. If this story moved you, hit that like button so somebody else's father gets to hear it too. And if you want to sit on this porch with me again, go ahead and subscribe. There is always another bottle of Iron City and another story waiting.
Good night from Pittsburgh.